Welcome to the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Well, the Biden files are now pouring out from the CYA media team, which is all the leftist loons. Jake Tapper is their new superhero. Why? Because victimhood is their safe space, and he is spoon feeding some strong victimhood these days. Listen to this crap.
And I think that we need to be skeptical of everything that we are told by people in power. And I mean, that obviously should be the mantra of being a journalist to begin with. If your mother tells you she loves you, get a second source. Right. But we just need to remember that. Like, politicians lie. White Houses lie. Power is an aphrodisiac. And we just need to all remember that and not take it face value.
Don't take this at face value. You can't even trust your mother if you're a journalist. I mean, we have to get back to this. We've been too trusting of the White House. Just so happens to be at the time when there's a new administration. Like, don't ever trust the White House. Listen, folks, journalistic malpractice today can get you a fat book contract. That's what we're learning here. That's what Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson got. They just released a whole book detailing President Joe Biden's physical and cognitive decline. And now they're warning journalists not to fall into the trust trap. Give me a break. Do not believe these people. Let's not forget that Jake Tapper repeatedly attacked any conservative who voiced concern over the president's condition. In 2020, Tapper just ripped Laura Trump for saying she felt bad for Biden when he was struggling on stage. Listen to this.
On stage, or they turn to him, I'm like, Joe, can you get it out? Let's get the words out, Joe. You kind of feel bad for him.
How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden, Jake, is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable.
You are
to
no.
watch somebody on stage
That's so amazing. It's so amazing to me that
try and figure out an answer.
A cognitive decline.
Well, when you're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline. I would think that somebody in the Trump family would be more sensitive to people who do not have medical licenses diagnosing politicians from afar. Plenty of people have diagnosed your father from afar, and I'm sure it offends you. Your father-in-law from afar. I'm sure it offends you. You don't have any standing to say.
I'm not diagnosing him. What I'm saying, Jake,
you just talked about a cognitive decline.
That Joe Biden
I have one last question for you, Laura. You can't
times on stage, and it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel sorry for Joe Biden.
I appreciate it.
He literally cuts her off. I mean, that is propaganda at its best. She says she's worried because he's really struggling on stage. Remember, this is 2020. He's really struggling on stage. She says there's concern about it. He comes out and he says, you're making fun of his stutter. She goes, I didn't know he had a stutter. Why didn't she know? Because he literally never had a stutter when he was in the Senate. This suddenly a childhood stutter came back. No, there was truly an issue. And then he says, you can't diagnose cognitive decline. And he really rips her, which I think is so ironic because now apparently Jake Tapper, now that he's written a book, he can diagnose cognitive decline and he can actually profit off of Joe Biden's cognitive decline. But anybody who was reporting it before him, they were making fun of Joe Biden. So now he's come out and he's apologized. Tapper's apologized to Laura Trump. Supposedly, he told Megyn Kelly that he apologized for saying those things. So it's like, look, I apologize for that. Now it should be all good. We should be good, right? I get to go on this big book tour and talk to you about the truth. This is a point where it feels like these people need to not just apologize to Laura Trump, which I'm glad that he did, if he did, but they need to apologize to the American people because we are really at a point where whether you are on the right or the left, you should be really mad. On the right, we were told we were horrible people. And then on the left, you were deceived and humiliated. Not the media. They were not deceived. It was the actual voters who were deceived. And I am shocked by the number of voters who came out and said, how could the people on the right say this about Joe? I mean, remember Joe Scarborough coming out and being like, this is the best Joe Biden we've ever seen. This is the best one. Regardless of what anyone is saying, he's amazing. This was total BS. He knew. He was behind the scenes. These people, they're like acting. Okay. Right now, what we're seeing is a lot of acting. They've gone from journalism to acting because they're trying to cover their own butts. So regardless of what we know today, we do know that trusting the nightly news, the days of trusting the nightly news are gone. Today's journalists, they're just creating and twisting the news to benefit their political party or their pocketbook. And both of those things are wrong. You shouldn't be personally making money off of the news. I mean, it's different that you get paid to be a journalist. You shouldn't be hiding the truth and then making money off it. You shouldn't be out there jockeying for your political party. But then how arrogant to come out and be like, I'm actually the news now. Jake Tapper believes he's the news. I'm going to go around and I'm going to be breaking news everywhere. I'm the news. How arrogant to travel all over admitting that you lied, but now I have the real scoop. The only takeaway from this book should be that the media not only helped to cover up what might be the biggest scandal in American history, but also put the entire world at risk by covering for someone who wasn't really president. Now they're saying that people were hiding it out of fear. If it's fear, what was the retribution? I mean, think about that. They are okay with saying there are people that just weren't willing to say it because they were afraid. Some of them are saying, they were afraid they wouldn't get access. Well, wait, why aren't you saying like this was a threat to democracy? Were we living under a tyrannical government where the government was threatening people if they exposed the truth? And the truth being that we had no president in the White House, that there was this shadow cabinet. Now we're hearing there was this shadow cabinet that was acting as the executive, that they were running the auto pen, that they were creating the executive orders. If that's the case, and it really looks like it is, how did the Democrats recover from this? Because it shouldn't be enough to say that journalists just became too trusting. They were complicit in this. The Democrats shouldn't recover. It should actually take decades to get back into the public trust. But they're counting on you forgetting. Really, if you think about this, you had 4 years where we sent a man out on the world stage who couldn't put sentences together. The media knew. They were writing the questions. They were helping him get through it. We should not let anyone forget. They should not be able to be trusted again for a very long time, but they're counting that you'll forget. They're counting on it because it happens. Last week, one of the pundits said, this story will die in 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, they think that 4 years of lies can just go away in 2 weeks. So we can't let the people forget that they all did this together. The media was there. They knew they were sending the questions ahead of time. They saw the behind the scenes. Like what you saw were the images that were really released by people who were trusted in that circle. The reason people didn't really realize this until the debate was because you were seeing what they were letting out. But the people who were interviewing him, they were seeing the behind the scenes. All of these people who say, we didn't know, baloney. So Alex Thompson, he's trying to play the victim too. Don't let them get away with it. This is what he had to say.
Why do you believe the Democrats push forward anyway, despite what Americans were telling them month after month?
I mean, it's a good lesson for the Democratic Party, and you should listen to your voters and listen to what they were very, very clearly saying. And let's be honest, the reason most of them did not speak up is because they were scared of the effects it was going to have on their political career. They saw what happened to former Congressman Dean Phillips when he spoke out and then eventually ran sort of a last-ditch run for president, and now he is no longer in Congress. There was honestly fear, and I think even the book you could call it cowardice on the with among many Democratic lawmakers about like their concerns about him running for a second term. And they only finally went public after the debate when they realized that Biden's own liabilities were going to drag them down too.
It wasn't fear. It's ambition. They all have it. They all want to get ahead. They all want to keep their place. They all want their committee assignments. And apparently, when you have a president who is not in there, who is being taken care of by a wife who wants to keep him in the White House, apparently you can say, I'm going to look past that and not tell the American people the truth because I don't want it to hurt my political career. It wasn't fear. It was just politics. But that's where politics have gotten. This is the fear you should have as the American people, that people are not willing to tell you the truth about what's happening. In fact, it's not just that they won't tell you the truth. They'll tell you, you aren't seeing what you are seeing. Because he just admitted that those people are also coming forward they were coming forward on Truth Social, or they were coming out in their posts on social media, not Truth Social. Those people wouldn't go out on Truth Social. They're coming out and putting on the record that they were supporting Joe Biden for re-election. So these people who were so afraid of their political careers, they were willing to put in writing on a social media post that they wanted Joe Biden to be reelected. They knew he couldn't be reelected. They knew he couldn't run for office. And yet they weren't doing that to protect you. They were doing that because they figured that they could continue the lie. They figured that they could, this facade was good enough that they could continue to convince the American people to keep coming back for more. Oh, doesn't matter. Don't believe what you see, these videos. Don't believe that you see that he's actually getting these questions in advance. Reelect him, reelect him. They were doing this just days before that debate, that career-ending debate. Where in that moment, like I said, there's no way to spin that. I don't know how they thought they were going to get through that. I think we all question how they thought they were going to get through that. But there must have been something that they would like jazz him up and they would push him out there and they figured they could get through this hour-and-a-half long debate or whatever it was. But that was the moment where people just melted down. They were like, oh my gosh, he's a disaster. They saw the decline firsthand. And they couldn't tell the public everything was cool anymore. It was like, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? This is when everything just breaks down. The shadow cabinet, the executive orders, the unelected bureaucrats, all of these people making decisions for you. They're like, oh my gosh, no one can actually see this. During that same interview with Alex Thompson on CNN, Jake Tapper actually admitted they had seen it. He literally talks about, he has 200 interviews. These two journalists waited until Joe Biden left the White House to conduct more than 200 interviews. And then they were able to quickly assemble a tell-all book. I mean, think about this. Nobody wanted to talk about it. It hasn't even been 6 months. In a few months' time, they interviewed 200 people. Did they do like 7 interviews a day? They got all of this massive information, and they were able to compile these 200 interviews into a tell-all book and then go on this tour. That's amazing. We've got more coming up on the journalists cashing in on their Joe Biden con job. But first, I want to talk to you about my partners at Ease Health. Great news. President Trump's executive order slashing the cost of prescription drugs is going after the price gouging for drugs like insulin with Obamacare. And you've heard me on this show introduce to you our healthcare partner, Ease for Everyone, which is a solution to what President Trump is fighting for today and every day. Listen to these simple facts. With Ease for Everyone and a monthly cost as low as $262, you get over 400 prescription drugs for free. Not a lower cost, but no cost, $0, plus a huge savings on so many other brand names. You actually get to keep your doctor, thanks for nothing, Obama. You get free unlimited virtual primary care visits, unlimited urgent care visits with a $30 copay, and generous cashback reimbursements for surgeries and hospital stays, including ICU visits, emergency room visits, ambulance transportation, and doctor visits. That's $262 a month, and you get to keep your doctor and over 400 prescription drugs for free. Visit easeforeveryone.com/Tudor and join today. That's easeforeveryone.com/Tudor. Now stick around. We've got more on the Biden corruption after this. The irony of this entire situation, guess what? It was not lost on even the leftist comedians. Here's Jon Stewart.
You will not believe what we found out.
Don't news people have to tell you what they know when they find it out? Isn't that the difference between news and a secret? You won't believe what we found out. No, that's why I'm watching. Breaking news in a week.
I mean, he's funny. It's not funny. They did keep it secret for some reason. And now somehow these two slime bags get to cash in and live a life of luxury on a celebrity book tour. It feels criminal. It feels criminal to deceive the country this way. And after the investigations on Capitol Hill, we may find out that some of the people who were engaged in this process actually were committing crimes. We have to find that out. And we cannot let it stop. We cannot let this continue. We have to make sure these investigations go through because there are questions swirling over that auto pen. Who controlled the president's signatures? Who wanted the executive orders? And whose executive orders were these? But please, please, as you hear about these investigations and see these pathetic confessionals being branded as book tour interviews, do not forget that this was the worst kept secret. And yet they're all trying to cover their tracks. Even The View. Whoopi Goldberg is suddenly outraged that no one spoke up sooner. Listen to this.
There has always been a mass trust issue because politicians, media, nobody does what they're supposed to do. Now, I say, for me, listen, he's 83, so he's a little stumbly, he's a little rumbly. I can't point to anything that he's done as that he did.
No,
as
he's running for his next 4 years.
Yeah. But I'm saying, I want, not you, but I want somebody to tell me, well, when did you know it was bad? If you knew, why did you wait?
Yeah. So can I answer that,
Can I get in
he
for a
said
second?
that it was after he moderated the debate.
Yes, but that's not, I'm sorry, baby. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you're telling me that hundreds of people knew that he was not able to do his job, then where the hell was everybody?
Biggest defenders. If you knew, why did you wait? Are you kidding me? Plenty of people were calling this out, but The View wanted none of it then. Now they're just falling on their sword. Oh my goodness, how devastating to find out that hundreds of people knew that the president was completely incapacitated. They spoke with him. They were in the inner circle. Again, folks, these people who were behind the scenes, don't let them tell you they didn't know. They saw it. The only person I will say I feel a little bit bad for is Van Jones. I think his reaction to the debate was genuine. And I think there are certain people who, when they work with someone their entire lives and they have respect for them, as you see them get older, it is hard to accept that they're getting older and you could be in denial. And I think that his reaction was really sad. Here it is.
There is no two ways about it. That was not a good debate for Joe Biden.
Ben? That was painful. I love Joe Biden. I work for Joe Biden. He didn't do well at all. He did not do well at all. And he looked, I'll give you the analysis, you kind of have the old man versus the con man. I can walk you through how I'm supposed to see it and say it, but I just want to speak from my heart. I love that guy. That's a good man. He loves his country. He's doing the best that he can. But he had a test to meet tonight to restore confidence of the country and of the base, and he failed to do that. And I think there's a lot of people who are going to want to see him consider taking a different course now. We're still far from our convention. And there is time for this party to figure out a different way forward if he will allow us to do that. But that was not what we needed from Joe Biden, and it's personally painful for a lot of people. It's not just panic, it's pain of what we saw tonight.
Like I said, there's this question that you have lingering in your mind when you see that. Like, were they thinking that he could just pull something out, a rabbit out of a hat that night? I mean, they seem to all have some sense that there was something wrong. You can see he's really sad, like it was a confirmation that Biden was gone. But it also seemed like this pivotal moment for Van Jones when he's like, what does this do to the future of the party? Like, can we switch him out? I mean, think about that in that moment. There wasn't really a time when they said, wow, we need to think this through and figure out if he had a bad night. Everybody was saying he had a cold. The White House was saying he was sick. Maybe he was on cold medicine. But yet right after the debate, they weren't saying, gosh, it could have been that his mind was screwed up from cold medicine. He might be sick. You know, maybe it's COVID. It wasn't any of those things. They immediately surrendered. Why? Why did they immediately surrender? Moments after the debate, immediately was like, who should it be? Will he let us take him out of the running? That was weird, because that wouldn't be your first reaction if you didn't already know there was something going on. Your first reaction isn't like, who can be the next person we throw in right after a bad debate? Because some people were like, you know, you have a bad debate. Okay, but the majority of people weren't saying that. They were saying there's a problem with the future of the party. And here's what he says today.
Do you feel like you were duped, Van? Like, how do you feel?
First, this book is extraordinary. I don't care who you are, left, right, or otherwise. Anybody who cares about this country and about just the dynamics of power, this is the emperor's new clothes playing itself out in real time. Everybody knew, but everyone was afraid to say, except for David Axelrod for 2 years, that something was wrong here. And so, yeah, I was shocked. I love Joe Biden. I don't like him. I love him. I got a chance to work with him when I was a part of the Obama administration and loved him more every day. I was shocked to see his condition.
He says the world was shocked. No, the world was not shocked. We were all wide-eyed. When we weren't the ones dealing with him on a one-to-one level. We knew, but world leaders really knew. And they probably took advantage of the situation. But it really hit hard during the G20 and G7 summits. But let's not forget leading up to that. Let's not forget Ireland in 2023. When Biden went to Ireland and told Irish leaders he wanted to go lick the world. Here's that.
There's nothing our nations can't achieve if we do it together. I really mean it. So thank you all. God bless you all. Let's go lick the world. Let's get it done.
Let's go lick the world. Weird. That's disturbing. Later that year, he announced that Queen Latifah had been awarded a Golden Globe and a Primetime Emmy. Gets even more bizarre than that.
With other movies and movies, she's earned a Golden Globe and a Primetime Emmy. That's me. Primetime Emmy.
What was that? Enemy. And then he looks down. I mean, it's like a little kid. He looks down. Enemy. That's me, he said. That's me? What does that even mean? It's super creepy and also disturbing. Then you remember the parachuting incident where the Prime Minister of Italy had to go chase him down and gently bring him back to the group of world leaders for that planned photo at the G7 summit where Biden had wandered toward a group of skydivers in that childlike trance. She had to pull him back, and then his spokeswoman went on MSNBC and told the public that you can't be mad about this. You can't be concerned about this. This is just dirty tactics. Listen to this.
Disinformation is alive and well. We have to use surrogates and voices across the country to combat this and make it clear that not only do we not play this game, but to your point, President Biden was out there literally representing America at the G7, saluting our troops, doing what he does as president of the United States. And look, we're going to see more of this. I mean, this is just the reality of campaigning in 2024. So we have to combat that disinformation. We have to hit it hard when it happens and make it clear that these are dirty tactics that MAGA Republicans are using because they can't run on the issues, Lemire. They have to use these dirty tactics like this because they are not right with Americans on the issues.
Gross. I mean, I don't think they can ever say disinformation or misinformation ever again. I mean, just before that, just days before that, Biden gives that speech in Brazil. Remember this, where he just like wanders off into the Amazon, like not just wanders off into the Amazon. It's like, is he going to be okay? He's going in there by himself. Does he know how to fight off the things that are in the Amazon? Weird, bizarre behavior. And then just before that, we're at that Juneteenth celebration that goes viral because he just froze, just totally froze. And we heard about this from other people, like, oh, there were moments when he just like became like really stiff and couldn't move. Why were we okay with that? We all watched it. They're lying to you. They all knew. So don't let these leftists who are attacking us now for pointing this out cash in. Remember, as the evidence of cognitive decline piled up, conservatives who shared those videos were routinely attacked by these liberal media outlets and labeled as liars. The White House press secretary teamed up with the media to create a new term for this cover-up. They called it the cheap fake. The video from the G7 was undeniable, but when asked about it, Karine Jean-Pierre looked at the media and said, "You have all called this cheap fakes video. That's exactly what this is. They're cheap fakes. They're these videos done in bad faith. And you guys named them that. You guys named them that. We don't have a problem. We're in this together." So she like makes this clear deal with the media, right? Like, here it is. Here's your message. These videos are fake. You guys called them cheap fakes. Your news organizations have been clear. Now we have to stick to the script, folks. Make sure everybody knows these aren't real. And guess what? The media, they got it. They totally understood the assignment. They complied. They're like, this can't be ignored and certainly not forgotten. These people are lying about the president. After the cheap fakes narrative caught on, Nicole Wallace wasted no time in airing her own segment, accusing the right-wing media of highly deceptive, edited videos. Here's Nicole Wallace.
There's a growing and insidious trend in right-wing media, broadcast, print, and social media. It is to take highly misleading and selectively edited videos of President Biden directly from Republican National Committee social media accounts and then use those videos to spread messages virally to cast doubt on President Biden's fitness for office. Here is this headline from the New York Post, quote, "Biden appears to freeze up, has to be led off stage by Obama at Megabucks LA fundraiser."
That's so funny. I mean, you can see she's like struggling to even explain it. So there's these videos. Don't believe them. They're not AI. They're not edited. Like, they're not altered videos. They've just been cut really short and you can't see the background. She's trying to explain this away. Everybody saw this, but for some reason they thought they could get away with this. So Brian Stelter, he's like, I'll also chip in. I'm a professional potato and I will give you the breakdown of what a cheap fake is. So here's his take on it.
House Press Secretary used the phrase cheap fakes, the idea of cheap fakes. Let me explain what that is to people. We've been worried for years about AI deep fakes, that computer-generated images are going to trick people into believing something that's totally false. Cheap fakes are a little bit simpler. They're cheap. They're just distorted, out-of-context videos, chopped up in certain ways, constructed in certain ways. That's what we're seeing. That's what the Biden administration, the Biden campaign is so worried about right now. But make no mistake, they are worried about this. This is a real problem. This is not some made-up fiction. The videos are oftentimes made up, but the problem is real.
We're not making this up, you guys. Listen, this is a real problem. People are showing videos of the president. I mean, they're altering videos of the president. They're not real videos. I mean, they're real videos, but they're not real videos. Just trust us. This is bad. Yeah. The real kicker is the former White House press secretary, Jen Psaki. I've always thought that fiery slimeball made a deal with Obama. She's like, I'll carry the old goat for a while, but then I want my $1 million deal. And now she's got it at MSNBC. And so she goes on the attack there. And she's like, the New York Post, they're horrible. Listen.
I mean, this all comes in a week where there was some New York Post report, inaccurate, false reporting that suggested the President Biden was kind of stalling, where he was paused, he was looking the other way. I feel like there's a double standard. I mean, do you feel like there's a double standard out there in how people are looking at their ages?
They can't mess with him on substance, so they go after what they see as his Achilles heel, which is his age. And of course, a lot of people see his age as something that helps explain some of his wisdom and some of his compassion, the kind of compassion you see not just within his family, but outside of it. That compassion for people in his family, which is real and authentic, becomes solidarity for everybody in the country who's struggling, as well as for people around the world.
She left the lie in the White House, and then she was like, don't worry, I'll cover for you. I just got to have a lot of money to do it. So you're going to have to put me on a big network. I need a primetime show. And then I'll make sure I cover for what's really happening, which is that we don't have a president. It was clear the administration knew the president was failing. And we know the media were willing participants because we saw that LA Times reporter have her question on the note card before it was asked in the 2023 press conference. I mean, it was all a lie. And they got away with it because the leftist media spent years demonizing Republicans. They were literally grooming their audience to hate Trump. And of course, they perfectly primed their audience. Their reporting was so far from the truth, but whether they were covering Biden or lying about Trump, they had their listeners fully twisted into these hate pretzels. They were just ready to accept anything. And they were, at that time, being spoon-fed this information that Joe Biden was like a hero. I mean, he was biking. He was practically doing Ironman marathons. The guy was amazing. And they thought he was the bee's knees. Their hatred was so strong. It allowed them to look past what they really genuinely saw. They saw a man who wandered into the Amazon and they're like, I mean, he's probably going to go fight things in there. He's in such great shape. Until that debate. Damn that debate. That debate was undeniable decline. There was nothing they could do. Their house of cards had crumbled. The media, the political consultants, the elected officials, they all had to scramble and get ahead of this impending disaster. Throw in another candidate. The jig is up. Act shocked. Oil the auto pen. Protect the president, who I could only assume was actually Obama at the time. But it seems like the Oval Office was like more like Bonnie Blue's bed at during those days. Like, rather than a place of honor, anybody can take a whirl. Come on, it's fun. Everybody try it. Now it's time to find out exactly how many people did sit at the president's desk during those dark 4 years. But Tapper and Thompson don't care. They get their payday anyway. They got in front of the whole thing, pretended to expose the truth. Maybe they should get an Emmy for their performance. I hear they're giving them out to anyone these days. Does Governor Cuomo still have his? I'll close by asking you not to buy the hype. None of these phonies should be lining their pockets in exchange for the truth. Like Jon Stewart said, isn't this the difference between news and a secret? I would go a step further. I'd call it an actual genuine lie. These people should not be cashing in on their deceit. They should be leaving their profession in shame. But it's up to us to make sure that people never forget what they did. So don't make this a 2-week story. Make sure people remember that an entire political party, and don't forget, Alex Thompson said it, these guys were worried about their political careers. It was the whole party. It was everyone who was elected. They had all seen him. They had all worked with him. They had all personally witnessed that we had no one in the Oval Office, and they hid it from you. And they should not be reelected, and they should not be in power again. So I ask you to continue to remind people that you were deceived for 4 years. You weren't, because you're smarter than that. But they tried to do it to people, and they made the country a mess in the meantime. As always, thank you for joining me on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. And you guys know, for this episode and others, you go to TudorDixonPodcast.com or the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to see the video, go to Rumble @Tudor Dixon. Join me next time on the Tudor Dixon Podcast. Have a blessed day.